Is there one structure upon which almost every story will fit into?
Yes. I know there's a lot of controversy about that.
Oh, please, we like that.
Yeah, I love controversy, is it?
Well, a little bit, yeah.
About structure, because this is something that everybody teaches and everybody likes to have their own version of it. So you got Michael Higgs, you got Maquis, you got Truby, Hero's Journey, Save the Cat. The key. So here's the thing about structure. So I believe in structure. I think everything in life is structured. The way we appreciate story is structured. In other words, we've evolved to understand, appreciate stories because of the way they're shaped. Okay, so like Eva Goldsman, for example, talks about how in the fashion industry, every shirt looks like a shirt, even though it may be a different cut, different material, whatever, but a shirt looks like a shirt. That is the structure of a shirt. The structure of a human being is the skeleton. All skeletons look the same, no matter what is on top of it, right? Even though as human beings we're all different, but the skeleton, if you rip off all of our stuff, will look the same, right? That means all human beings have the same structure. If a human being didn't have a skeleton, they'll be like a ragdoll piece on the floor, right? They would not exist. The same with stories. Unstructured stories are not as appreciated as structured stories. At least that's my experience. No matter how you label it, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you label the inciting event, doesn't matter what you label the beginning, the middle, or end. It's still structured. And so all stories are structured. All stories have the same structure, not necessarily, that whole thing that they teach you, which I think is ridiculous. The page numbers say, okay, this has to happen on page 12, and if it's not, you're doomed. No, that's silly. Or that you have to have an inciting, all stories have an inciting event. That's that. But the whole thing about, midpoints or all is lost, darkest moment, dark night, all this stuff, there's exceptions to that. But most stories have the shape of stories, which is, rising tension, climax, resolution. That's kind of inarguable, I think. So I'm a big believer in structure. Now, in terms of the actual labels, that's up to you to decide. I mean, the way I learned structure was to basically read everything and to really kind of learn what other people have said from the beginning, and kind of if it didn't resonate with me, then I didn't absorb it. But there's always something where something does resonate with you and you suddenly understand it, and so you adapt that to your own work, to your own lessons, to your own craft. So, my labels for structure might have little pieces from all the different ones from that has been taught so far. And that's what works for me. It doesn't necessarily mean that it would work for someone else, So it's up to you, up to the writer to really study all forms and really understand why that is. That's the most important thing. And when you think about stories, when I talk about the power of stories, I kind of show why stories are shaped the way they are. It's kind of the way we're conditioned to accept them, and if they're not there, we're just gonna say, that was weird. That doesn't fit, doesn't seem like a story or something, and so something will be missing. And I think that happens a lot from writers who don't know structure or try to say, well, structure doesn't exist, or whatever negative connotation they have for structure, which is, it's gonna make me uncreative, and it's gonna be like cookie cutter formula, and all the stuff people say about structure. Well, I do show a slide of human beings that look different, and when you take away all the stuff and you show skeletons, those skeletons look the same. So you can't argue that human beings don't have the same structure. They do have the same structure, but they all look different. It's the same with stories. Stories all have the same structure, but they all look different.
It reminds me almost of Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and she talks about the stages of grief.
Right.
And I'm not quite sure what it's anger, denial,
acceptance, right. Yeah, that's the structure of grief. Yeah, which is pretty amazing.
Right. I know it's a morbid comparison, but but there's a natural
helpful
progression. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I've known writers who create their stories based on the grief structure.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. So more power to them. That's another structure. Yeah.